your staff member told you in just a really weird, disconcerting way that they didn't prepare for Sunday, at least as much as they wish they would have. To do this again. But they followed it up by saying, I'm trusting God to show up. And you felt that knot in your stomach really made you uncomfortable, because isn't that what we're supposed to do? Trust God, right? And yeah, saying all the right things, but also, weren't you supposed to prepare a lesson? Weren't you supposed to prepare your set list? Weren't you supposed to work on your sermon? We're talking about excellence and excuses and accountability and all kinds of things this week on the podcast. I'm so glad you're here. This is the Healthy Church Staff Podcast. And my name is Todd Rhoades, one of the co-hosts over, I guess I'm a co-host at Chemistry Staffing, but I'm one of the co-founders over at chemistrystaffing.com. There's a spiritual language that we use in ministry a lot of times that sounds right. Things like, I'm just praying about it, or God will provide, or I'm trusting his timing here. And all of that absolutely can be true. But sometimes those kind of phrases are a smokescreen. It's a way to avoid the hard conversation or the uncomfortable decision or the preparation that you really didn't want to do or didn't take the time to do. And we've baptized procrastination and called it faith. And the problem is it's almost impossible to call out, because the moment you challenge those kinds of phrases, you're the one that sounds unspiritual. Are we saying that we shouldn't trust God? No, I'm saying God gave you a brain, a calendar, and a deadline. And ignoring all three isn't trust, it's irresponsibility that's really just dressed up in religious language. So here's what it actually looks like when you have somebody on your team, or when you hear phrases, these kinds of phrases. Here's what it actually might show up like on your team. Yeah, it might be a worship leader who doesn't rehearse because the Spirit will lead us. They don't pick out their song lists, or we're going to be open. We need to be open to the Holy Spirit. Maybe it's the executive, and there's nothing wrong with it, right? Maybe it's the executive pastor who doesn't create systems because we're Spirit-led, we're not corporate. Or the youth pastor who wings every talk because God just gives me the words. And you know what? Maybe he does. But he also gave you Monday through Saturday, right? Now listen, I'm not saying these people don't love Jesus. They do. And I'm not saying that God can't work through spontaneity. He absolutely can. But sometimes I think we've confused dependence on the Spirit and dependence on God with negligence toward the work. So how do you tell the difference? Here's the question that I think you can ask. Are you doing everything you can do and trusting God with what you can do? My wife, Dawn, always had a phrase. She always taught the kids. We call them Dawnisms or momisms around here. Something she would tell the kids almost every day, and they're starting to repeat those. My daughter's a teacher, and she repeats this in the classroom sometimes as well, and maybe a little slightly different wording. But Dawn would always tell the kids, do everything that you can do and trust God to do the rest. That's exactly what this question says. Are you doing everything you can do and trusting God with what you can't do? Or are you doing nothing and just spiritualizing it? Okay? Because biblical faith isn't passive. It's Nehemiah praying and posting guards, right? It's David trusting God and picking up those 5 smooth stones. It's Paul saying, I planted, Apollos watered, not Paul saying, hey, I prayed and hoped that something would grow here. Faith-filled leadership prepares like it depends on you, and it prays like it depends on God. Lazy leadership skips that first part and calls entirely on the second. And if you're leading a team, you've got to name this, right? First, you've got to model the balance yourself. You got to let your team see and prepare, see you prepare and pray and work hard and worship and plan well and stay flexible. Show them what integrated faith looks like, not compartmentalized spirituality. Secondly, create a culture where both competency and character both matter. You can't just be a nice person who loves Jesus. You also have to be a nice person that loves Jesus, that also shows up on time, that does the work, that hits the deadlines. It's both and, it's not either or. And then third, you need to have a direct conversation when you see that drift. Hey, I love your heart. I do. I love your heart, but I also need you to prepare. Trusting God is essential. So is doing your job really well. You're not choosing between faith and excellence. You're refusing to let someone hide behind one to avoid the other. Because there's a lot at stake here. When you let spiritual language cover for poor performance, you erode trust, and the rest of your team notices. Your volunteers notice. They see someone getting a pass because they pray out loud in meetings, and they start to resent it. And eventually, they'll either check out themselves or even leave. You also teach people that mediocrity is okay as long as you sound spiritual. And that's not the kingdom. The kingdom is whatever you do, work heartily as for unto the Lord. Not whatever you feel like doing if you get around to it and blame God if it doesn't happen. So here's the bottom line. Trusting God should make you more diligent, not less diligent. More diligent, not less diligent. Thanks for listening. If this has helped, share it with another church leader who needs to hear it. And remember, God's not looking for perfect leaders, just faithful and diligent ones. All right, we'll see you next time. That will be tomorrow right here on the Healthy Church Staff Podcast. Have a great day.